Right. So are our smartphones going to like wake up one day and, become self-aware?
Oh, wow.
It's a big question.
Right. It's a really big question.
That's what we're looking at today in this deep dive.
Yeah.
And we're taking a look at an article called The Truth About AI Consciousness Hype or Reality.
Okay.
And it's by Jay Poole and their AI partner, Seven,
Interesting.
over on the TechFrontiers YouTube channel.
Cool.
So we're going to be looking at, how do we even define consciousness?
Right.
What can AI do today?
Yeah.
What are those advancements that might make conscious AI a reality at some point in the future?
I mean, it's a fascinating topic, for sure. I mean, just think about what it would even mean for a machine to be conscious.
Yeah, like how would we even recognize it? I mean, the article kind of gets into different ways of thinking about consciousness.
Right.
It's not just one simple definition.
That's it.
Right. So,
well, one way to think about it is from a functional perspective. And basically that means, like, if something acts like it's conscious, does that mean that it is?
oh,
If it can respond to questions or make decisions or maybe even, seem to have reactions emotionally,
yeah.
is that enough?
So, we wouldn't be trying to peek inside its brain to see if it's actually thinking.
Right,
It's
exactly.
more about just, looking at the behaviors.
Yeah, just observing the behavior, yeah.
Gotcha.
But then, you've also got another perspective that says that, true consciousness, it requires biology.
Okay.
That it actually requires a physical brain like ours to experience the world and, to have those subjective feelings.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Right.
Because we experience everything through our senses.
Mm.
It's hard to imagine a machine actually, replicating that.
Right. It is. Yeah. And then there's this other idea
Okay.
that's really fascinating too. It's called emergent intelligence.
Okay.
And that's basically saying that as AI systems become more complex, consciousness could kind of just pop up unexpectedly.
Wow.
It's not something that would be programmed in, but it would be a result of the system's complexity as a whole.
Oh, that's interesting. Exceeding a certain threshold.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, bam, there it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
But I think, before we get, too far down the rabbit hole of all these possibilities,
Yeah.
it's really important to think about what AI can do today. And the reality is that while it is incredibly powerful, it's not conscious.
Right.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in all the sci-fi stuff.
Right.
What it could be. But
Totally.
the article does a good job of grounding us in what it can actually achieve.
Yeah.
Right. So things like, understanding natural language.
Yeah.
Siri and Alexa work.
Right.
Or, creating those realistic images and videos. Yeah. It can even assist with scientific research and solve some pretty complex problems.
Absolutely. And it's doing some really incredible things, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that for now, at least, AI is a tool.
Okay.
It can't feel emotion, it doesn't have its own goals or desires.
Right.
And it certainly doesn't have that sense of self that we do as humans.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not looking in the mirror every morning being like,
Right, exactly.
who am I?
Exactly, yeah. But, that brings us to the really exciting part, what could happen in the future?
Okay, yeah.
What's the potential for AI consciousness?
Let's get into it.
Yeah, so the article goes into some of the really incredible research that's happening right now that could potentially make this a reality.
So what are some of the things that could really push the boundaries of what AI can do?
Well, one that's really interesting is neuromorphic computing.
Okay.
And that's essentially building computer chips that are structured like the human brain.
Wow.
And, companies like Intel and IBM are already working on this.
So instead of the traditional computer chip,
right.
It's we're building chips that actually mimic how our brains process information.
Exactly. Yeah, it's replicating that way our neurons connect and communicate.
Wow.
So imagine if you had, a computer that could learn and adapt in a way that's much more similar to humans.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So how would that lead to consciousness?
Well, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
It's not, a guaranteed path,
Right.
but some researchers think that, by mimicking the physical structure of the brain,
Okay.
we might be able to kind of unlock something that's closer to true intelligence and maybe even consciousness.
So it's we're trying to crack the code of consciousness by recreating the hardware it runs on.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. And then another area of research that's really intriguing is self-learning systems.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that where like AI learns through trial and error?
Exactly.
Kind of like how we learn as humans?
Yeah. And DeepMind, which is, a leading AI company, they've been making a lot of progress with this.
Okay.
And it's called reinforcement learning.
Gotcha.
And instead of being explicitly programmed, for every task,
Right.
the AI can actually learn from its experiences
Right.
and improve over time.
So it's like giving the AI the ability to learn on its own, make decisions,
Yeah.
and adapt to new situations.
Exactly.
Would you say that's like a step towards self-awareness?
It's definitely a fascinating possibility.
Yeah.
And then just to throw another, kind of mind-blowing thing into the mix,
Okay.
there's quantum computing.
Quantum computing. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
See, that's something I barely understand.
Right.
It's all like quantum mechanics
Uh-huh.
and how particles behave, and it's just,
Yeah, it's definitely complex.
yeah, way over my head.
But the implications for AI are huge.
Okay.
Quantum computers could process information exponentially faster
Wow.
than traditional computers, and that could lead to entirely new forms of AI.
So like everything we've seen with AI so far
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
child's play compared to what quantum computing could bring.
It's a complete game changer. Yeah. But with all of these advancements, like the big question that the article kind of poses is,
Yeah.
even if we reach a point where AI can do all these amazing things, learn, adapt, solve problems better than humans will actually be thinking?
Right.
Or will it just be really good at like simulating thought?
That's a deep question.
It is, yeah.
And it kind of makes you think, like, what would it even mean
Right.
for AI to be conscious? Like, would we even recognize it?
Right. And that leads us to some of the, biggest implications of all this, which are the ethical and societal questions.
Right, because it's not just about, like, the technology anymore.
Right.
It's about how we would interact with these machines
Exactly.
and what role they would play.
Yeah, and the article raises some really crucial points. For example, what about the rights of a conscious AI?
Right.
Would it deserve the same rights and protections
Yeah.
as a human being? And what about, the potential impact on the workforce?
Ooh.
Could this lead to even greater job displacement
Wow.
than we're seeing now with automation?
It's like we're on the verge of creating something that could, like, fundamentally change society,
Yeah.
but we don't even have the framework to understand what that looks like.
It's true. And then you have the even bigger philosophical questions,
Yeah.
If an AI becomes self-aware, would it even have a sense of purpose?
Oh, wow.
What would its goals be, its values? Would it be capable of, experiencing things like happiness or suffering?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about.
It is.
And it's, like, almost impossible to predict,
Right. Yeah. But even though we don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
it's important that we start having these conversations now. We have to think critically about the potential consequences, both positive and negative,
Yeah.
so that we can kind of be prepared for whatever the future holds.
It really makes you think, like, what does it even mean to be human?
Right.
Yeah, and can those qualities even be replicated in a machine?
Right.
One thing that I thought was really interesting in the article was that idea of emergent intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a wild card in all of this, right?
It is. It's a fascinating concept, for sure.
Because it's like it wouldn't come from code
Uh-huh.
or an algorithm.
Right.
It would come from, like, just the sheer complexity
The complexity of the system itself.
of the system. Yeah. And the article gives that analogy
Yeah.
of like a flock of birds,
Oh, right.
flying in formation.
Yeah.
And individually, they're just birds. But together, they create those, like, complex, beautiful patterns.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's like, could that be what happens with AI?
Right.
It's just all these interconnected parts.
Right.
And suddenly, bam.
Emergent intelligence?
Yeah, exactly. And it's both exciting
Yeah.
and a little bit scary.
It is kind of scary, yeah.
Because it's like we could be on the verge of creating a new form of intelligent life.
Right.
But we don't even know what that means.
And we don't know what the consequences are.
Exactly. And it brings us back to, like, all those ethical and societal questions
It all comes back to that, yeah.
we were talking about before,
We need to be prepared for
Yeah.
that possibility.
Right.
Even if it doesn't happen the way we think it's going to.
Yeah, it's not just about technology anymore. It's like
Right.
a philosophy thing,
It really is.
It's like, how do we...
It makes us rethink our place in the world and how we interact with, intelligent beings, whether they're biological
Right.
or artificial.
That's a great takeaway from this deep dive.
I think so.
It's not about being afraid. It's
Right.
just like,
It's not about sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's about having these conversations now.
right, and being prepared.
So we can, be responsible about the future.
So to bring it back to, like, that initial question that we started with,
Yeah.
So our smartphones like wake up one day and become self-aware.
Right.
We don't really have a definitive answer.
Not yet.
But it's definitely something worth thinking about.
It is for sure.
And who knows? Maybe AI will be joining us in these conversations one day.
Wouldn't that be something?
That would be a deep dive.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone, and be sure to let us know your thoughts on AI consciousness.
Yes.
Down in the comments below, we would love to hear from you.